good deeds. Write a note of appreciation to your mail carrier. Funny that this mentions writing to a mail carrier because I actually wrote a note on my own phone to show the display to a clerk one day because I've already told this story before. The day that this one rude lady that all of us have encountered everywhere in town. She happened to be at the post office that day giving our clerk a hard time. And ultimately, when she was asking for the manager because she had a very threatening tone about how I want to talk to the manager because it's ridiculous that I've been coming here for the past 4 months. If I have to come here one more time, something like that. And then the clerk went like, or else. Basically, I wrote on my phone a note that read something like, that lady sucks. She makes my life hell where I work at as well. You handled her very well. And I love that his face lit up immediately because I have been going there since forever, but he hasn't been there at the counter at least quite as long because I recognize everybody, but he hasn't even been a whole year there. But he's a great guy. He does everything. He has a kind tone and he's even kind of shy to a certain extent from what I gather, but I think it's the kind of person who is so respectful and polite that they come off as shy. I wrote them that note. After that, every time he sees me, he's like, oh, it's so good to see you, this, that, and the other. I wrote him that note and I felt like it's one of those instances when I felt I wish I had my notebook with me or something. But ultimately, I guess I could say indirectly, I wrote the entire station a note because they always tell you that the tracking is on top, the survey is on the bottom. And if service is outstanding, particularly, I will take the survey. I've taken it a few times. In the past, I had to express some negative feedback about some things that happened, especially with that one clerk who challenged me with the QR code that I told you guys about a while back. That was a negative experience, especially the way I was treated. But when I get good service, I also make sure to take the survey. That day that I took the survey, I thought I wasn't the one being served directly, but indirectly, I was happy to have witnessed how this individual handled this rude person, and as a result, it didn't affect the flow of the line because he maintained his composure. He immediately reached out for support. He didn't entertain that clown who is known around town as being challenging. And I was happy. I was happy with how he dealt with it. And I just wanted to let you know that, hey, he's great. I'm pretty sure that if they share that feedback, because I did write down his name on the survey, maybe someone said, oh, you got a good note on a survey. And if he was shown that response, he should figure that it was me who wrote it. And of course, I'm not going to say that aloud because it's not everybody else's business to hear. I could have said it verbally. I didn't have a problem with that. He is my intended recipient exclusively because I have had him before. He has served me before and he's great. But I don't think that the people in the line and the other clerks that were around that need to be hearing that type of thing. When I speak, I like for what I say to an individual to stay with that individual, even if it's nothing important, even if it's something trivial. You are the sole intended recipient, unless I say something like, oh, on my behalf, tell so-and-so that I don't know, I said, hey, give them a message if I can't give that message myself, something like that. I haven't considered writing to someone who delivers mail like that, but I will say that I have greeted a handful of times the lady who is now on our route. We used to have another older guy, but I think he might have retired unless they changed his route. But I haven't seen him in about a year and a half now. And then after him, that's when I started seeing the other lady. And what was funny about the lady is that on 3 occasions, I happened to be in my car by the time she was doing her rounds. Like one time I happened to be walking out the door, getting into my car, and she was coming over because there's like this sidewalk. And then, of course, there are apartments throughout. And she likes to park her truck right underneath this tree that is big enough to where it casts a shadow on the street. And she doesn't have to use a parking spot because the road is already pretty wide. Essentially, on our road, you could fit about 5 vehicles if they were facing parallel to the road. So she'll park parallel on the road under this tree, which is by the curb. It's a very strategic place to park because in the summertime, I thought she's smart. She's picking the shadow. I guesstimate it takes her about 6-7 minutes to walk this entire section, but she's also getting her exercise in. But it's possible that if she covers all of the buildings here, which I want to say she does, that it'll take her about 10 minutes instead, because it's when you're shuffling through mail, I can see how that might take you a second. I have greeted her and I have told her thanks, and on 2 occasions she has handed me the mail on my hand. And then another time I remember that I had just parked and she happened to be nearing my apartment. So I stepped out of my car and I said, "Oh, thank you, and how you doing?" And another time, I think I had just come back from being out and I just lingered in my car for a little bit. And then I noticed that she was coming during the interim that I happened to be there. And I said, fuck it, I'm gonna step out and say hi because she's nice and all that. I don't think I would necessarily write them a letter, but I think if I had to, the most appropriate time would have been during the pandemic, because I would go out pretty much to work and to go to a post office, and that was about it. I did nothing else during lockdown. I do remember that I felt like some of my packages were delayed when delivered or when arriving, and we had those banners online that would express that, hey, you can experience a delay with your packages. Apologies for the inconvenience. Don't be frustrated, essentially. And I thought, wow, not only are retail workers working pretty hard out here, but the post office, of course, they are really grinding through this. I will disclose that there is somebody I would like to write a letter to, and it doesn't have to do with the post office, but there's this gentleman who has been assigned now to direct traffic out of an elementary school. Prior to him, like last year and the year before and the years preceding that, it used to be this one lady who sometimes I felt worried about her because people legit would not obey her authority with traffic. But in a sense, I can understand that she could be confusing. She would only have a stop sign, and sometimes she would like show it and then put it down, and she wouldn't exactly cover the lane that she meant to stop. Next thing you know, you have traffic conflicting, where the whole point of her stopping traffic is because there's a turning lane to and from the school, and then there's the 2 lanes to exit the school, and then the incoming and passing through lane, of course. So what was happening was, because there wasn't any stoplights, then it became necessary for there to be a person managing traffic, but it wasn't police. It was a member of staff from the school. I don't remember this lady wearing reflective gear to start, but eventually she did, if I remember correctly. And again, her stop sign, her signaling would be a little confusing because she would kind of like point for traffic to go, but she didn't really project it in a way that ensured that if you're coming onto that traffic and you haven't seen what her last signal was, you wouldn't be able to tell if she has your lane stopped or if your lane can go. Ultimately, one day I got confused. She began to hold her sign up pretty much as I was getting ready to cross. Like I had already passed the white line, And then she signaled again to stop. So I pretty much had to slam on my brakes just to be sure. And then ultimately, she decided that she wanted to let me go. That happened another time similarly as well. But this other time, I actually did have to stop. And I remember witnessing people literally driving around her in some instances. Otherwise, people could hit her. I like that the current guy we have, of course, he has his reflective gear, he has the stop sign, but he makes it very clear he will actually move throughout the intersection. Whereas this other lady, I feel like she used to hang out in the center of it and kind of like, whereas the guy is more like physically moving throughout like the four corners of this intersection. With his body, he's projecting what his traffic instructions are a little better, in my opinion. I have never gotten confused with him. And another thing I have noticed is that when we had the lady, traffic would get backed up super bad because I think that she was, no matter what, prioritizing the school traffic. And what would happen is the lane that is occupied as a passing lane, even though legally, based on signage, it's not a passing lane, but we should make it a passing lane, because if we don't make it a passing lane, then the line is going to stretch God knows how many miles. A middle lane, despite being a turn lane, is turned temporarily into the passing lane so that you can keep going straight as opposed to making a turn into the school. And I never fear being stuck in that line anymore. With the lady, I could wait 10 minutes before my lane started moving. But this guy, I think he visually uses a reference point of how far he's willing to let the line go. And if I had to guess, he's probably using the exit of the school where the buses come out as his reference point of, that is as far as I'm willing to let that middle lane get backed up, because if I let it stay backed up, then buses cannot get out or come in. And anytime I'm in the middle lane, I can expect to be rolling and out of that traffic no more than 2 minutes. That is impressive. I went from waiting about 10 minutes stuck there to being out within 2 minutes. That is super awesome. And I remember that when school started again, I was super anxious about that stupid traffic. But now, after 3 mornings, when I saw that gentleman there, I thought, this guy is very good with traffic. And I feel like it's only getting better, because there are times in which I'm like at the very end of the line, of course, and next thing I know, I'm moving and I have to stop maybe 2 times, and next thing I know, it's my turn to go straight. That is super. I have been having the thought of writing him a note, slipping it in an envelope, and in one of my commutes to work, roll down my window, holler at him, and hand it to him, and hopefully he doesn't lose it. Hopefully he doesn't think I'm crazy. But I really wanted to write him a thank you note to let him know that, hey, I went from being anxious about this traffic and completely despising it because of how things would look, to being confident about taking this route and not fearing how long it would take, because I feel like he balances it out very well. And I thought that maybe the most practical thing to do would be to dial the school, ask for his name, drop off the letter. Just do it that way. But I would like to personally, I guess, turn it in to him. But I also like to be anonymous. So I think that I prefer to leave a note that has that impact, but I don't need to be followed back with or thanked for my thanking of this person. The more under the radar I stay, the better. But I've done that shit before. I have written notes to people at their jobs before, and I can tell that it really makes their day. And of course, they knew that it was me ultimately. But with this gentleman, because it's in the middle of traffic, it really wouldn't be the best thing. And I don't want to just park and stalk him and wait for him to be done directing traffic and catch up to him and be like, hey, I just wanted to hand you this and thank you for what you're doing. You do a great job. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not that. I'm not. If I have in mind writing a letter to someone, it would be him. And there have been managers in the past I have written notes to. I'm definitely a letter writer. I love to write day in and day out. I journaled a couple of days ago for the first time since like May, and I was so devastated because I'm like, damn, I keep saying I need to journal this, I need to journal this, I need to journal this, but I didn't get to it. And then when I saw how far behind I was, I'm like, damn, not even for my birthday I was able to have a entry. But it's all right. It is what it is. At least I have this, and my stories were captured here for the most part. The other ones were, I guess, some that could be impactful enough to live in my memory for a while before I forget about it, but it is what it is. There you guys have it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know if you have ever written a thank you letter to a stranger, and what was it that inspired you to do so? What kind of maybe service or gesture were they performing that left you like, wow, shit, I need to acknowledge this person and let them know how much it meant that they did that. Okay, that's it. Bye.